So I really, really was fascinated by how people speak and the variability that we see there. So you and I, everybody else, whatever language we speak, we are all creative listeners.
Okay, are you searching for participants?
Yes, always.
Hi, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Farhat Jabeen. I'm a part of the phonetics work group here in the Department of Linguistics in Bielefeld University. I'm also a co-PI in our SFB 1646 on creativity in communication.
The name of the project that you are working in is The Creative Listener. Can you describe who this creative listener is?
I would say all of us. So all of us who use language and who have the listening capability, we listen to language, and whenever we are presented with novel input, in our case, we look at mismatches. So when we are presented with mismatches, we have a creative interpretation of them. Because most of the time, if you say something where your prosody, for example, does not match the word order that I would have expected in that context, it's rare for me to come out and challenge you. Oh, what do you mean by that? Mm-hmm. Usually I will try to make something out of that. And that's what we want to see, what kind of strategies people use when they are presented with mismatches like this. So you and I, everybody else, whatever language we speak, we are all creative listeners.
So you don't actually have to be creative in your mind to be a creative listener. It's just about how you understand language and how your brain can differ about different meanings about the language.
Yes, how you interpret language, basically. We are not psycholinguists, I have to clarify that. So we are not using psycholinguistic methods at this stage either. Currently, we are saying, okay, you have a word order. As a native speaker of a language, German in this case, you have certain expectations for prosody and what it would mean and the context. And when the prosody does not match your expectation, that is the default, what would you do? Right? And that people will use different strategies. People differ in terms of their tolerance for that as well. Some people are more tolerant of those mismatches. They will try to make sense of it. For other people, their tolerance is low, and for them, the communication will break down soon. So we want to investigate when the mismatches happen and before the communication breaks down, what goes on in between. And then some of the strategies are the default ones that most of the people use, and then some are the ones that are used less frequently, less commonly, or depending on speaker characteristics. So we look at those and then we call those creative. So this is the creative interpretation of the mismatches that we get between context and word order and prosody.
Okay, that's very interesting. Do you mean this is like the whole goal of this project, to find out about the mismatches and how the brain will analyze them?
Exactly. Again, I wouldn't say how the brain would analyze it, because we are not looking at any EEG data. We are not looking at psycholinguistic processing of those mismatches. So, for example, one task we had was we presented people with these mismatches and asked them to respond to it. Like if I give you a weird word order, or weird in the sense that it doesn't match, right? So in one experiment, we told people, okay, so Wesen, Bienen hat der Imker umgesiedelt. By the way, pardon my non-native German. But if you are asked a question like that, and then as an answer you are given, der Imker hat die Bienen von Lena umgesiedelt. That was not the question. Right?
Yeah.
But I would tolerate it most of the time. And what we asked people was, we presented them with pairs like this, and then we asked them to rate those sentences. So that's how we see how they are interpreting it. In other experiments, we are looking at these mismatches in terms of picture selection, for example. So not psycholinguistic, not neurolinguistic either, but indirect means of checking how people interpret these contexts and mismatches.
So you worked on something you named the color shape experiment. Would you like to describe what this is about?
Yeah, this experiment, I actually quite liked working on it, because I thought whatever choices people make, it will be interesting for us to know. So what we did was we had mismatches like this, and we showed people 3 pictures on the screen, and they were asked to click on one picture, and they will hear a prompt, and as a response to that prompt, they will click on the picture. So they would hear, click on the red heart, please. what they see on the screen is either a blue heart or a red flower. So that the shape that they get either matches the color or the shape. And then they have to choose between that. So whatever they choose for us is acceptable, because we are not saying anything is right or wrong or correct or incorrect. It's just interesting for us what strategies they go for. So what we saw was that there was an influence of prosody as well. So we will ask them, click on the red heart or click on the red heart. And what we found that was that overall people did prefer to get matching shape.
Okay.
So it was important for them to click on the matching shape, the shape that matches the prompt. But if the color changed, that was more acceptable. So that's what I meant, that people can vary in terms of their acceptability of what they will go for. So in that particular context, the default is on clicking on the shape, right? And then there are those who pay attention to prosody as well, so that when they hear prominence on red, they will go for matching red color. And when they hear contrastive prominence on shape, they will go for matching heart shape. So there is an effect of prosody in that regard.
So you found out the prosody is the most important thing, or were there also any problems? Because maybe you found out that people are not going for the prosody, but they're going for different things.
Yes. Actually, prosody was one of the variables that we looked at. We also varied in terms of what kind of alternatives they see on the screen. Sometimes 2 hearts and something else, sometimes like 2 matching shapes or 2 matching colors. So we varied. We had 2 bigger independent variables. We found that focus alternatives, for example, the kind of alternatives that are showed on the screen, participants didn't take that into account when they were clicking on pictures. But there was a role of prosody, so that when they hear contrastive prosody on the color, they did go for the color more often, or on the shape, they did go for shape more often. So I wouldn't say that prosody plays the most important role, but we manipulated 2 variables, and among those, listeners did pay attention to prosody when they were clicking on pictures.
So this is like subconscious, that when you hear a prosody, that you will prefer this kind of, maybe like the red heart or the blue flower when you heard the right color before.
I wouldn't want to talk about at what level of consciousness such a choice is made, because
it's psycholinguistics.
Yeah, exactly. We haven't tapped into that, right? But what we do know is that there are previous studies that have shown that, people pay attention to prosody, but it has to be consistent and reliable. And as soon as people realize, prosody is not helping me in making these decisions, people discard it very fast compared to lexical cues or visual cues, for example. So we have done subsequent revisions of this experiment, manipulating other variables. And what we see was that if there is apparently a competition between visual paradigm, that is what they see on the screen, and then prosody, that is what they hear, the visual paradigm is so strong. The options that they see on the screen, the color combinations for the pictures are very strong. So when we started asking people, in our next experiment, we started asking people, so why are you clicking on pictures? Because in the first one, we just asked them click, and we got our results, all good. But then we started asking them, why are you making the choice that you are? And we realized that they're not really paying attention to prosody there, because people came up with all kinds of arguments. I guess this is our desire to look for patterns. So people were looking for all kinds of patterns, all kinds of reasons, sometimes very nice ones, like, I want to click on this heart because we need to spread more love in the world.
That's lovely.
Yeah. Or I will click on this alarm clock because I like to wake up early in the morning.
Okay, so the focus about the experiment was not pretty much there, but more about the pattern or the personal interest.
Exactly. And then we suspected that this might be the case because people pay a lot of attention to the combination of pictures that they are clicking on. So sometimes when people were asked to drag and drop pictures in a box. So in our next experiment, we gave them a box on the screen and they were asked to drag and drop pictures among the set available on the screen. And they have 2 pictures there that we asked them to move, and the third one is their choice. And that's what was informative for us. And then they had 2 left and one of them needed to be moved. And sometimes people gave reasons like, if I choose this picture, this is the colors of Armenia, right? The football team from Bielefeld. And they will have an opinion about that. Do they want the colors of Armenia? Or maybe they are not that much into football, and then they don't want to do that. So all kinds of interesting reasons that people gave. It was fascinating to look into people's minds, what they are thinking.
Yes.
They were looking for patterns. They were looking for reasons all the time. And we did not expect that. So that was very interesting for us to look into.
So I see that you're very fascinated by this experiment. What would you say is your general personal interest in this project?
I mean, I like the idea of working from listeners' perspective. So usually in phonetics and phonology, we do start with production studies and then go towards perception studies, what the listeners are doing. And in our SF-BAE, we do have projects looking at different perspectives. So we are one of the few that look at listeners' side. Because in speech, there is abundance of cues. There is abundance of information that we present to our listeners, like, listen to my lexical choice, listen to my word order, please, listen to how I'm saying it. And all this information, we use it. We sometimes use some aspects, sometimes use others. So for me, it's fascinating to see that when we bring in all these aspects together, which of these things speakers pick up on. And in my own previous research, I found that among the prosodic cues available, for example, people pick and choose. In one context, they will pay attention to duration. In the other context, they will pay attention to F0 manipulation. And why wouldn't we? Right? When we have all this information available, why wouldn't we use all of it or some of it here and there? So I find that fascinating how people pick and choose between cues.
Another question I have is that you talked about the color shape experiment, but I noticed that you only did it with German speakers. But in this project, you are also working with the English language, with Hindi, Urdu, and Hungarian. What makes those languages interesting for this project?
So the reason we picked those 4 languages was typological, because in terms of using word order and prosodic cues for information structure marking, we put Hungarian and Hindi in one basket and then English and German in another basket, because Hindi and Hungarian use syntax and word order more strongly than prosodic cues. And then English and German use prosodic cues more strongly. The word order in German is more flexible than in English. And then within Hungarian and Hindi, there are differences as well. So we had typological reasons because we are looking at 3 different language families now. Hindi and Hungarian are under-researched languages. So we think from so many different perspectives, this is a richness that these languages bring to our project, that we can get a typological perspective at the same time working on under-researched languages, which helps us understand a variety of phenomena that otherwise are not very well understood.
You're doing also the color shape experiment with the native speakers of the other languages?
Yes, that's the plan.
Okay,
yes.
nice.
So we did one version of our color shape experiment last year. We had some findings, presented those, and now we are trying to make the experiment more interactive, just like we are talking now. So now we have 2 confederates or 1 confederate and a participant trying to have a conversation, because we are trying to simulate real life communication to some extent. So our PhD student nowadays, Shravani Patel, she is working on the next version where she's adapting this experiment for Hindi.
Okay, are you searching for participants?
Yes, always.
Okay, good to say.
Yes, always.
But like everybody can take part of it, or is it still in the working?
We will send it out when it starts. So our idea will be to further modify it for German as well, then Hungarian, Hindi, English. We haven't worked that much so far, but that's in the pipeline. So if in your audience there are Hindi speakers, native, non-native, they can reach out to us. That would be great, because we are always looking for participants.
Okay, so stay tuned.
Yes.
I already asked you, like, what is your personal interest in this project, but could you answer, like, shortly, what is your personal interest in linguistics in general? Like, how did you start to get interested about it?
So I came into linguistics through phonetics and stayed, basically. So I really, really was fascinated by how people speak and the variability that we see there, and how we interpret that variability. Sometimes we call it dialectal variation, sometimes it's just individual variability. Sometimes I just say things differently because it's boring to say things in the same way.
Yeah.
And then we can have interfaces. We can see how phonetics and prosody, in my case, interacts with word order. How do we change the word order? And that changes the meaning, that changes the prosody. So I think that's fascinating. The variability that we see in phonetics, and we are still able to understand each other. I think that's mind-boggling.
Yeah, I also am very in love with phonetics, but I think the viewers already know that. What do you like about the University Bielefeld?
So I haven't been that long in the university, maybe long enough, 5 years now. And I joined here during the pandemic, so it took me some time to settle down here. What I like about the university and our Department of Linguistics here specifically is the interdisciplinary research that we are carrying out here. Like in this SFB, for example, you see we have so many colleagues who are working on different aspects of language, so different levels of linguistics that we know, we do that. We have interfaces with syntax, semantics, pragmatics, phonetics and phonology. But now we also have colleagues from law department, we have colleagues from philosophy, psycholinguistics, neurolinguistics, and so on. So I find this diversity of topics and areas fascinating because I can go attend someone else's talk and learn a lot from that. In our CRC events, I can go attend someone else's poster and see the kind of methodology they are using and the exchange of ideas, the flow of ideas, how fast that is. I'm very happy about that here.
Thank you for being on the University Bielefeld, and thank you for the interview. But before we end this video, I would like to ask you some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Syntax or phonetics?
Phonetics. Any day.
Where to get the best coffee in the University Bielefeld?
Hassan's.
Teaching or research?
60-40? Research more.
Where's the best place in Bielefeld?
Lutab. That's really nice. Like you can put your feet in the water and sit there.
Oh yeah, it also has a cafe, right?
Yes.
Food from home or from the cafeteria?
Home is better.
Summer or winter semester?
Summer?
Is the University Bielefeld ugly?
Yeah. But SciTech is nice. That's where my office is. So.
Why linguistics? Fast.
Because language is one of the tools that we use every day, all of us.
What is your face when a student asks you to do a spontaneous interview with you?
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.